Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of ResponseABLE Parenting. My name is Becky Jennings. Today, I'm going to be talking about how we as parents manage a meltdown and how we as parents continue to show up, continue to be present for our children when the meltdowns won't stop. This was what happened to me this morning and yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. My 3-year-old is on this really stubborn kick of wanting to wear a specific thing to school. And when that specific thing isn't available, then we have an end of days battle. Now, I want to say that from the beginning, I have used conscious parenting with my 3, almost 4-year-old. So he has never experienced the authoritarian or passive style parenting. He has really experienced from the jump that conscious communication, and he still melts down, and he still gets really frustrated, and he still acts out. So I want to just set the tone that he's just, because he's experienced this, he's not this magical cherub that doesn't have human reactions to frustrating things. So let me set the stage. A couple days ago, he was really upset that his Spider-Man costume wasn't clean because he had worn it for 3 days in a row. He even wore it to meet Santa, and it wasn't clean. He couldn't wear it the 3rd day in a row. Huge meltdown. Then he had a specific pair of pants he wanted to wear. Those were actually wet in the washing machine. He couldn't wear those to school. Then today it was shoes. He couldn't find his shoes. We searched the entire house, could not find the shoes, had to wear a different pair of shoes. And that was an epic meltdown. And it's interesting. I'm just finishing up my workout now and felt like I had to jump on and share this. So if you're watching, that's why I'm kind of sweaty and in workout attire. But that this morning, when I started my workout, I opened up my fitness tracker app and it said we detected a workout. And it just happened to be the time that my son was melting down. And I thought, isn't that interesting that my workout tracker detected my increase in heart rate, my elevated heart rate, and it thought I was actually working out. Instead, I was just dealing with a huge meltdown and it was stressing me out in a big way. My body was having the same physiological response to stress as it would if I was going for a jog or lifting weights. And yet it was just my child screaming and melting down over shoes. So that brought me to thinking about, okay, we can be parents showing up left and right for our children using empathy, validation. We can be that safe, connected container for them so we can really ride that emotional wave with them and allow them to, just feel safe as they're dealing with totally normal, primal human emotion. But what happens when it doesn't stop and our nervous system is starting to catch on fire? Logically, we can say the child is 3. The child is 4. This child isn't regulated. I need to show up in a regulated state for my dysregulated child. Logically, we can say, I understand that when I use logic, it's not going to make a lot of sense when they're in their primitive brain and they're only responding from an emotional center. All of that, we can say all of these things to ourselves. And yet, if we don't have the coping skills, if we don't have a baseline of regulation, then we won't be able to keep that runaway train from going off the rails. So when a meltdown doesn't stop, we will fall back into passive parenting. We will fall back into authoritarian practices in order to get it to stop because our body is literally on fire. So what happens when the meltdown doesn't stop? So a couple things, and I did not nail it today, just going to be honest. At about minute marker 28, I did fall back into an authoritarian style to just shut it down because my nervous system was on such high alert that I felt like I couldn't handle it anymore. And the second I did that, the second I slammed on the brakes, stopped the car, and was like, enough! I felt awful because I watched my almost 4-year-old kind of shrink back into his chair. I watched his whole body change. I watched him kind of turn his head away from me, completely stop crying, and he was just silent. And I just thought, oh, Becky, you just sent him in to freeze. He was fully expressing all of his emotions, just as he is designed to do. You were helping him through it, validating, giving him coping tools. You were being that safe harbor for him. And then you couldn't take it anymore. And as a grown adult, you snapped at a 3, almost 4-year-old. And I watched the physiological response change in him. And while I'm not going to sit here and beat myself up because that does nobody any good, it was such a good learning moment for me so that I can be aware of how it felt in my body. And I can say, I didn't like how my son looked when I changed. When I was on course and I was giving him all the things, when I switched back into an authoritarian mode and I watched the physical changes of my son, it broke my heart. And I don't want to be that person for him, but it was so human in me as well. So like all of those feelings that he was feeling, I'm over here feeling the same things. And as parents, we can feel really guilty when we don't nail it. It's really frustrating when we don't nail it, when all of those things are going on in our heads, like telling ourselves like, oh, just imagine their developmental age and stage. Oh, use compassion. Oh, use empathy. Oh, I know this script. And then we don't do it because we are human, because we also respond to external stimulus. And we also react from a primal place when we do hit that peak overwhelm. But it was a really important lesson for me to relearn so that I can recognize within myself, this is that moment. I need to either tap out, I need to change my environment, I need to gain some support, or I just need to breathe for a second and lean in a little bit further because I know within 5 minutes, I'm either dropping him off at school or he will crest in this emotion and it will slow down. I think we think that the meltdowns won't stop. My fitness tracker said that it was about 14 minutes where my heart rate was super escalated and I was dealing with this screaming and external stimulus. So about 14 minutes, which in those 14 minutes, it can seem like eternity, but it is going to stop. It will. It will eventually stop. And it stops either when we give in through a passive mechanism, we overpower them with an authoritarian tactic, which I did today, or we continue to ride that emotional wave with them, and they eventually purge out the feeling as much as they need to, and they're satisfied with that output. And then we're there in that safe container, keeping them safe, allowing, and witnessing versus absorbing what's going on for them. This was a huge learning moment for me to just realize that, yes, those 14 minutes were excruciating. And I could tell, obviously, with what my fitness tracker said, that my body was really having a visceral response, but it's going to end. And sometimes we think it won't stop. And that's when we need to recruit more support, whether that looks like a new skill, whether that looks like leaning on a friend, calling a friend, venting to somebody, that looks like a partner or a trusted caregiver to ask, can you please take over for just a few minutes? I have to go breathe. That looks like shifting up the environment, putting on some music, going outside, doing something different that changes the energy in the room so that you have just a little bit more. So as parents, I don't think we're ever at a zero baseline of energy and stress and reaction. I don't even think we're like at 50%. I think that would be like a dream come true. With everything that we have on our plates, we're probably hovering around 60, 70% when we wake up. So when we get all this extra dumped onto us, it's not like we're going from 0 to 100. We're going from like 60, 70, maybe 80 to 100. So what these support tools are designed to give you is to allow you to go from that 60, 70 marker down to maybe 50, down to maybe 40, so that when the meltdowns happen, you have a bigger window of tolerance that you can give and gift to the relationship and your child so that you have a little bit more time. If I had had a little bit more reserve, maybe I could have made it to that 20-minute mark or that 22-minute mark of the meltdown, knowing and reminding myself that this will end. And my only job in the meltdown is to not add my stuff to it. My only job in the meltdown is to allow my child to ride the emotional wave in a safe, contained, supportive way where I'm reassuring my child, where I'm supporting my child, where I'm validating that experience, not giving in, holding that loving boundary, and also just allowing it to happen, because humans have emotions. And when we suppress those emotions, stop them, shut them down, it doesn't fix it. It doesn't fix the behavior. It just shuts it down until a later time. And it will be building, brewing, creating storylines, creating neural pathways in their body that is telling a different story than we probably want to ingrain in them. So I just wanted to share this very honest experience about how we all lose it, and how when the pressure of time and when the feeling of overwhelm in a meltdown and like the actual fear that it won't stop can cause us to act in a way that is misaligned with our values as a parent and with our desires of how we show up as parents. So, huge learning moment for me that yes, this feels like you're walking through a fire pit right now, and you're walking on glass, or you feel like you're in a torture chamber right now, and it's so intense, and your nervous system is actually giving you all those cues and signs saying like defend yourself, you're in fight or flight. But just know that it will end, and it will end maintaining connection when we choose to show up and know that our only job is to ride this wave, and our only job is to show up and support our child and keep them safe. So thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.